Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I am Ravi Gupta. I am editor in chief of a magazine called eGov. eGov magazine has been uh, covering issues around various aspects of the governance sector. And today, we are proud to have Mr. Kumar Pushkar, who is the managing director, Karnataka State Development Corporation, government of Karnataka. Mr. Kumar Pushkar is heading this department, and we will be having this discussion around tourism sector in Karnataka. And we are all aware that because of the COVID-19 situation, sector has been badly hit. Uh, what are the challenges? What are the opportunities of this sector? And in this situation, we will be discussing about it. So, Kumar Pushkarji, thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Namaste.
Uh,
Thank you for inviting me. I'm privileged to be part of this webinar, and I'll try my level best to give my inputs, whatever experience I have, and then whatever vision I have, I'll share with the audience.
sure. So, as we are all aware that because of the COVID-19 situation, this tourism sector has been worst hit. One of the biggest hits happened to this sector, and the hotels are closed, the airlines are closed right now, and uh, this sector is facing huge challenges. So, how do you analyze the present status of this sector, Kumarji?
Uh, the current situation, as you very rightly told, probably it is the most unprecedented kind of a situation. None of us in the entire industry had anticipated that this kind of a situation can come. We are always prepared for some kind of a change in the pattern of the economy, but not this kind of a thing where we are actually trading at zero budgeting or zero income kind of a situation. And this is not only for India or Karnataka, this is across the world. Situation is really very tough, and very rightly you mentioned, tourism is probably the worst hit. So the entire dependency of the people on this sector, as we understand, more than 100 million people across the world are dependent on tourism. They have been suddenly affected. In fact, we could see that change in India from the first week of March when the cases started coming in India. There were few that time, but then that started affecting the tourism potential in India. And I remember in the first week of March itself, I was discussing with the principal secretary that how many number of cancellations I am getting. And by 15th of March, I found that almost all my hotels, all my tour packages, they had come to a standstill. And then officially the lockdown was implemented from 24th. But much before the lockdown was actually announced by the government, people had stopped traveling. So the fear of corona had overtaken everybody's mind. The travel had come to almost a standstill, and now since almost 2.5 months, the entire sector is affected. If I speak of the Karnataka scenario, we have almost 30 lakh people who are directly or indirectly dependent on the tourism sector out of a population of around 6 crore. And the contribution in Karnataka to the state GDP is something around 14.8%, which amounts to which amounts to almost 223,000 crores in a year. It's a huge amount of GDP contribution from tourism in Karnataka. If we look at the state, the country's the contribution of GDP from tourism, it is around 10%. But then if you look at the state like Goa or Kerala, there the contribution is something around 30%. The entire population over there is dependent on tourism. So we have a huge fear that Many of the industries which are small in nature in the tourism sector, whether it is a small hotel or a restaurant or a small tour and travel agency, they may lose their existence altogether. Not only them, but even the big airlines also, they are also under a lot of stress, and we do not know whether many of them will be able to actually revive or not. Situation is pretty tough, but then we all need to fight it out. That is what I feel.
So in this type of a situation, when the globally, nationally, and of course locally, this sector is hit, and I think all over the world, the tourism and travel sector is like thinking about what are the possible ways of reviving the sector, and whenever we open up. What are the what is the thinking which is going on in your organization? How are you thinking that how to revive Karnataka's tourism sector?
We have been in consultation with the entire tourism community here from the very first week of the lockdown. The Honorable Minister and the Chief Minister also had number of meetings with the tourism stakeholders. Besides that, we had number of meetings to basically be on the same page and to understand the situation not only in the government sector but also in the private sector in the tourism and hospitality. Uh, we all are facing a very difficult time, but at the same time, the entire tourism community is also telling that we understand the difficulty in which the government is there. We do not have revenue, but the government also doesn't have the revenue. They also have the additional responsibility of taking care of the survival of millions and millions of our countrymen. So the tourism community has been telling very clearly that we are not asking for any kind of a grant or money in directly given to us. They have been suggesting or requesting for certain deferments of the payments which has to be done, the statutory payments, the rentals, and so on. And they have also been asking for some kind of a facilitation for the softer loans, so that once the business starts, they would be in a better position to start with some kind of a financial support. If I tell you the situation of KSTDC was a profit-making organization for last 3 to 4 years, and we had sufficient money to continue progressing. But then in last 2.5 months, we have lost almost 18 to 20 crores of revenue. But then the fixed cost of minimum of almost 3 crores is to be paid. So I paid that in February, sorry, March as well as April. This month I do not have money to pay the salary. And a similar situation I expect in the private sector also for most of the companies which are operating like us. So whether it is a hotel or a tour operator, they would also be going through a similar kind of a situation. Being a government organization, we have taken a very conscious decision that we will not retrench anyone. Even on the administrative regions also, if somebody has not performed well, we normally use the hire and fire policy, but then we will not be removing anyone from the organization. We will keep paying the full salary to all of them. So that is the policy which we have taken, and we will stick to that. Apart from that, we are also planning different things in anticipation that the government probably at a certain point of time when it feels that the tourism is going to be safe will allow us to operate the hotels, the restaurants, the tours and the aviation trains. All these things can start at a certain point of time, so that particular point of time we should not struggle. So that is why we are already gearing up with our own preparations. So keeping the properties in readiness, the hotels are all ready, the disinfection processes, the training on that, the sanitation processes, procurement of material for the sanitation, and then the guidelines to be followed. In fact, the FSSAI has given a beautiful guideline to be followed in all the restaurants across the country. that is mandatory also, and then we have decided to adopt it as it is for the state of Karnataka. So that will ensure that we have social distancing, we have the good practices which will ensure that the restaurants are safe for people to visit. Similarly, for the hotels also, taking inputs from the different tourism and the hotel agencies and associations, we have already formulated our policy or the guideline on the different practices or the SOPs has been finalized, and we will immediately issue it after the lockdown is relaxed for the hotels. Very important thing in the post-COVID time is to give a confidence and a trust to the guests that the hotel or the restaurant or the tourist spots are safe to travel. Karnataka, I am slightly in a better position to speak on this because Karnataka is not so badly affected as against our neighboring states of Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, or even Gujarat and Rajasthan. So that way the number has been so far under good control, and if we continue to maintain that, then probably Karnataka can become a good destination. The only thing is that we need to follow the good practices to give that confidence to the traveler that yes, if I travel in Karnataka, I will be able to safely travel and will not carry back home any kind of infection. So that is a very important thing on which we are working. We are also working on the use of the social media to continuously engage with the people. That's another thing which we have been doing. So if you look at the Karnataka tourism handles, we are coming out with beautiful creatives, the videos, the other information about known and as well as unknown destinations of Karnataka to keep everybody engaged. We also run stories, we also run quiz. So these are the things which we are doing to basically keep everybody's mind focused on Karnataka. And once things are opened up, we will be able to do well. As it is in Karnataka, our state, we had a database which we analyzed. We found that almost 70 to 75% of our guests across the state are mainly from Bangalore. So that is one big advantage. See, if I am looking for a tourist, I do not need to look for people coming from outside. So 70 to 75% of the existing people itself from Bangalore would be traveling to different locations in the state. That is one advantage. The second advantage, probably after a couple of months when the things ease out within the entire country, the domestic tourism will start flourishing, and that time we will have additional strength. Probably you would be aware that in a year we used to get around 10 million people from different countries coming as inbound tourists, but now, and then at the same time we had almost 25 million people who used to go abroad for the tourism purpose. So we will have those 25 million people additionally available to travel within the country, and who will be in a better position to utilize the high-end facilities also. So the number wise, the country will not have a problem. The only thing is that we have to ensure a very, very safe travel.
Sure. As you have highlighted this ratio of international and national tourism sector and the international tourism, the Indian tourists who are going abroad, they will be looking at Indian options, and Karnataka can emerge as a good option since it's. I think Karnataka has the advantage of good airports connectivity you already have, and you also have, I think, Udan scheme, air airports, and internal in the states, the conditions of the roads, inside the state, is also good enough so that people can travel by road also, and train connectivity is also excellent in the state as far as I understand. So please, if you can also highlight, there are various aspects of the tourism sector. There is urban tourism, there is a rural tourism, there is yoga, there is MICE sector. So if you can give us a sectoral perspective, that will be nice.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, you have really touched on the very strong point of Karnataka tourism. We have a tagline. one state, many worlds. So this is from the tourism angle. If you look at, we have all kinds of products which people look for in tourism. All kinds of experiences we can give. Except for the Himalayas, the snow-capped mountains, we have everything. So you have the hills, you have the mountains, you have the beaches, you have the forest, you have the heritage, adventure, the cuisine, and so on. So that way we have a lot to showcase, and rural tourism is one thing which is actually going to gain ground in the coming days. And apart from that, MICE tourism was doing pretty well. Actually, Bangalore, Mysore, and some other parts of the state was doing extremely well as far as the MICE is concerned. But then we need to see how the business tourism or the MICE tourism takes a shape in the coming days. Nowadays, probably we all have understood that a lot of meetings can happen over the net itself rather than traveling long distances and wasting a lot of time. So till the time the situation normalizes, probably the companies would also prefer that the meetings are not held uh, outside, and that it is done on the net. So probably for some time we'll see a dip in the MICE tourism, but then the rural tourism has a huge scope of improvement. We have the yoga also. Mysore is known as the yoga capital of the world. We have more than 10,000 yoga teachers in Mysore, and they are very capable people. So yoga, as it improves your immunity and health, is also going to be one sector which will attract a lot of attention. So that can be boosted. Karnataka Tourism had already started working on the new policy for the next 5 years. The 2015 to 20 came to an end on 31st of March, and we had started working 6 months back only on the new tourism policy, and there all these different new niches of tourism like rural tourism, the caravan tourism, the yoga, the wellness, and the camp tourisms, the aero sports, all those things are getting a priority over there in the new policy. Policy was about to be issued, but then the pandemic struck us and we kept it on hold. And then when we had a relook 10 days back, we thought that it would not be very relevant keeping in mind the impact of COVID. So COVID has really changed the entire scenario. So we need to be practical, and that is why we are refining the chapters, adding few strategies to deal with the Corona and the COVID situation. Because the next 1 to 2 years would be basically spent mainly on the survival and the revival issues. So we are doing that, and probably in another 1 month's time, we will be out with the new tourism policy, which will help us in tackling the impacts of COVID in a much better way.
Recently, the Prime Minister has talked about a big relief package for the overall country, and there are various options of in terms of loans. Some of the easier policies have been introduced, and there is also focus on uh, getting self-reliant on Atmanirbhar and various other aspects of like increasing the domestic capability, domestic manufacturing, uh, etc. So, are there any components of those announcements which are going to help the tourism sector in Karnataka?
See, overall, the economic impetus which has been given by the Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Finance Minister is going to really help the entire country. All sectors of the economy are going to gain. Uh, in fact, all the announcements have been kept in mind, keeping in mind the the existing situation where people need some kind of assistance to survive. So that is also kept in mind, and government is also offering different kinds of financial support to improve the business. And the thrust, as the Honorable Prime Minister told, is on self-reliance. So all these things have been taken up very positively by the tourism community. In fact, there are more expectations, but probably with time, the government would definitely look into the tourism community's further demands. But then the entire announcement has come as a major relief to the entire industry, including the tourism industry. And Atmanirbhar is something which we have to really take it ahead. In fact, since last 1.5 months, we have been talking about the globalization policy which used to be there. In case of tourism also, we always used to keep on telling that we need to have more of inbound tourists. Now we have to basically talk of the local. So from global we have to come to the local, and that is very relevant for the tourism. In fact, the Karnataka's tourism minister, he came out with a campaign theme, "Love Your Native," and the other one is in Kannada, that is called Noduba Namma Uru. Please come and see our own village or the own native. So this is the campaign which he has launched, and we are actually taking care of this campaign on a everyday basis. So localization, the local tourism, followed by the domestic tourism, that is what is going to be the order of the day. The new normal, which we all have been talking about, the new normal will incorporate these kind of things: the safety, hygiene, the confidence or the comfort in staying at a place, visiting a place, and visiting a known place rather than going to an unknown place. You would not like to risk yourself by going to Barcelona because you do not know what kind of a situation is there. But you would know that from Bangalore, probably going to Mysore or Madikeri is much easier and safer, so you will travel. So this local tourism will definitely flourish, and I am pretty sure that the tourism will bounce back shortly. In fact, every time there is a crisis in any part of the country, we are like in Karnataka, we see that there are floods, there are droughts, which result in the tourism getting affected. But the best part of the tourism industry is that it recoups back very fast. It is springs back very, very fast. So that way, once the lockdown is relaxed for the tourism, I am pretty sure that we will also bounce back very fast, and we need not look back that time.
There is a like there are some questions from the audience which I would like that you can take it,
Yeah.
and some of it like you have already addressed, and some you can look into. Uh, there is a question that many of the photographers like us are traveling to other Asian countries for portraits of cultural photography in the rural places. Why can't that start in Karnataka villages professionally? So there is a question by some photographer that they've asked that like
Oh, this,
having
yeah.
yeah.
This is a very good suggestion I can take as. In fact, this is part of the tourism policy. We are going to boost the rural tourism, and rural tourism is mainly basically the cultural tourism. So you basically involve with the farmers, get involved in their culture and also the farming activities. And we have tried to copy the model of Maharashtra. Maharashtra has been doing extremely well in the rural tourism, and we had some resource persons from Maharashtra coming in and giving us the inputs from their side, and we found that that model is quite good. So on similar lines, we will be boosting rural tourism to a great extent, and photography and all those things will be the local food is going to be another very important thing which will come into picture.
If you can talk about this local food as a tourism attraction, because like Karnataka has a big range of that. So if you can explain in detail about this.
Very true. Karnataka has a wide range of variety of food choices. Unlike in North, I actually belong to North India, but then I am very happy here with the food because for the breakfast itself, you have different kinds of menu on different days. So there is lot of variety, and the food is very tasty. and liked by all. The foreigners also like the food because we do not use too much of spices also. Even though it's very tasty, we do not use too much of spices. Bangalore already has few gastro trails and also the food trails. So such packages exist in Bangalore. In Mysore, there are certain places which is famous for certain dishes. So those are already existing. You go to Davangere, you find the Benne masala dosa. You go to North Karnataka, you have the Joar's roti, and then the brinjal vegetable and so on. So all these areas, and then the Hassan or the Mandya area has the ragi mudde, the ragi balls.
Mm.
So we have to basically put things to make it more systematic.
Mm.
It's there organized in Bangalore, but then other places we have to put things together to make the food trails much more popular.
And Karnataka has places like the Jog Falls and various other similar exotic rural sites, which are still not as much explored by the North Indian population. Like North Indians are like still going to Europe and Canada for tourism rather than visiting a place like Karnataka. So how do you uh, wish to change that situation?
See, this will automatically change after the experience of COVID-19. Probably things will automatically change, and we all would start looking for places which we have not visited in our own country.
Hmm.
So, see, I am also going to be 50 shortly, but then I can still say that I have not seen many of the places in our own country. And when you go out to some other destinations outside the country, you find that probably we have better destinations in our own country. So that way, once we start exploring our own country, we will be happier and we start traveling more and more to get a better experience. With regard to, attracting people, because it's not that people will keep on searching on their own. We also need to reach out to them. We have to use the social media and all different media like electronic and the print media to
Hmm.
tell them about the good locations, good destinations where they can have a great experience and reach out to them. So they when they make a program, they will be able to come. Jog Falls, one particular example which you told, has a limitation that we do not have sufficient number of rooms available to stay there.
Hmm.
People are normally the day visitors, they come and then go. So we need to work on more number of accommodations at all these places. Even Badami, Aihole and Patadakal, which is one of the World Heritage Site, very beautiful, but then again the limitation is we do not have good accommodations there. So that is why in the policy we have identified the focused tourism destinations. So instead of concentrating on the entire state and giving a subsidy for building hotels in Mysore or Bangalore, we have focused on certain destinations which need additional support. So we'll be giving subsidy to people who come forward with a hotel project in these kind of a places. So we are going to support that, and then as far as the promotion is concerned, Karnataka tourism from the government side, we will be doing our level best.
And are there any plans to increase the UDAN network for connecting the smaller cities so that it can help the people to reach places faster?
In fact, this plan of Government of India, the Udan scheme, has been extremely beneficial for the state of Karnataka. We had only Bangalore, Mangalore, and Hubli airports which were running regularly. Now, with the onset of the Udan scheme, we have number of flights. In fact, to be precise, there are 8 flights coming to Mysore on a daily basis. We have flight to Hampi. Now we have got a flight connectivity to Gulbarga also, that is Kalburgi. We have flight to even Belgaum, and then we have connectivity from Goa, Kochi, Hyderabad, Chennai, and so on. So Udan has really helped our state and this is going to boost the tourism. So in last 1 year, this all these things has happened. Besides that, we are also working on a project on the promotion of the heli tourism for a shorter distance, and for the people who can afford it. We are also coming out with a. We have already come out with a tender, and we are finalizing the contract. So the heli tourism companies would be picking up people from the airport in Bangalore and then taking them directly to their destinations. So that is also in place. Probably in few months' time, that would be successfully run.
There is a question on the screen that can we also think of starting virtual tours for the tourism sector in Karnataka? Can this be a new revenue source in the coming days?
This is one thing which we have been talking about of late. In fact, the managing director of the Jungle Lodges and Resorts, he was mentioning to me that he has already given assignment to a certain company to do virtual tours. So even if you are sitting in New York, you can have a virtual tour of Nagarhole or Kabini, and then feel as if you are going in a safari, and then you are seeing a tiger and other animals. So that has a good potential, but then what is the kind of a revenue model we will have to look into?
There is another aspect that if we want to attract the domestic tourism, the tourism promotion which normally happens, say in English, for most of the states. But if our customer is like sitting in the North India and that customer thinks in Hindi, or some other customer is thinking in Assamese or Marathi or Gujarati or any other, for let's say Tamil or Telugu, whatever. So, are you like thinking about having multilingual marketing campaigns based on the different languages, different profiles of customer in the country itself?
Uh, Kerala has been already doing this. In fact, the social media of Kerala has been doing their campaigns in number of languages of the country. We also have been doing now, instead of doing it in only English, we have been doing in Kannada also. But then we have plans to reach out in to others in Hindi and Malayali, Tamil, Telugu. So some other language, 5 different languages we are going to pick up additionally, and then do our campaigns in those languages also. Last year we had taken an initiative to do most of our campaigns in different foreign languages, so Spanish, German, French, and one more language, probably this Japanese and Chinese. So these were the languages in which we brought out all our brochures, Karnataka tourism brochures, and then wherever we went for the road shows or the events, we carried the material in their local language. So that really helps. If you have to touch somebody's heart, you have to talk to him in his own language.
So, when we talk about that, a lot of Indians haven't seen India itself, including me. like, so there is a big lack of awareness about our uh, tourism sites, our heritage sites. So, do you think that a bit of a heritage education or a tourism education in the schools would help increase domestic tourism?
That would definitely, from the tourism angle, if you read it, yes, it may help in improving the tourism. But then, as I remember the history which we had read, I mean, it speaks of most of the cultures which we come across when we go to any of the monument. And when you relate that, you really find it very interesting. So the history itself, which we have read, the ancient, the medieval, and the modern history, gives lot of value to the tourism sites. So all the ASI monuments or the state archaeology monuments, and
Yeah.
even the temples, they have lot of history in them. But then from what you are telling from the tourism angle, if we have a few chapters, that will also bring a new dimension in the thinking of the younger generation.
Sure. And if you look at the strategies adopted by the European countries like Switzerland, and many others. They were approaching the Bollywood to do their shootings there, and that's how that the European tourism like took off like anything. Like think about it, Switzerland or Germany or Holland or many other countries. So like think about Sholay was shot in Karnataka. Actually. So like are there like in the new policy which you are planning any plans to link it up with the film sector to attract tourism?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Last year itself, the government of Karnataka
Mm.
uh, published the film tourism policy. So after a
Okay.
lot of deliberations, the film tourism policy has already been announced and brought into force, and that is also part of our new tourism policy. So and then the rates and all those subsidies, what is going to be done, given to the filmmakers, all those guidelines are also very nicely elaborated in the film tourism policy. So that's a very important segment. In fact, in Spain, I was told that after Jindagi Na Milegi Dobara,
Exactly.
the number of people traveling to Spain became more than double.
Mm.
Similarly, Switzerland, they respect Indians because Indians are the biggest tourist over there, and Indians go there because we have been seeing all those locales in different films. So whether it is Chandani or Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge and so on, there are
Mm.
number of films. So that actually catches in the mind of people. Of late, since last 1 or 2 years, I am seeing a lot of films being shot in UP.
Mm.
We came out with a film tourism policy, and a lot of producers are preferring to go to UP because, as part of the policy, they also coordinate the permissions to be taken. For one film shoot, outdoor shoot,
Mm.
producer has to go to 8 to 10 different departments.
Mm.
If that process is simplified, and then on top of that, if you also get some kind of a subsidy, it is very helpful. And in that context, Karnataka government has already come out with that, and we would be supporting film tourism.
As Karnataka, if you look at South India, you are competing with a big player like Kerala, which is very famous, very well known. And if you like ask anyone in North India, like everyone knows that if you are like going to South India, you have to go to Kerala. So how do you deal with that situation?
In fact, see, we have been traveling a lot to different places for the events as well as road shows. In India, we do not have an identity crisis because Karnataka is well known, especially Bangalore, Mysore area.
Yes, yes.
But when we go abroad,
Mm.
whenever we say that we are from Karnataka, they ask where it is. And as soon as we say that it is in South India, they say, is it near Kerala? And then we have to say that, yes, it is between Kerala and Goa. And all of them actually recognize Kerala and Goa. And then we show them the map. So this is what has been happening in the on the international front. But domestically, we do not have a challenge.
Uh, there is some question about IT. That how you think IT can help in increasing tourism in Karnataka?
IT is very important because now all of us are used to use technology on a daily basis. Without mobile, we find that we are handicapped, and mobile is probably our lifeline these days. So we have to capitalize on that and use the technology to reach out to maximum number of people. So in that context, the social media is definitely helping us. We have got a very good agency on board through a process of tender, which is doing its best to reach out to maximum number of people. Apart from that, the website of Karnataka Tourism was more like a government website where we only have the information and mostly static information. So
Mm.
that we are in the process of revamping, which I believe should be over in a month's time, and we will be having a fully new website which will be on the lines of probably Singapore and Australian tourism boards website, where you can see things on a dynamic level. You can also pick up places where you want to stay. You can also pick up experiences of different kinds. You can plan your tour as per your budget. So it will be a more of an interactive kind of a website with dynamic contents on it. So that will really help us in reaching out to people. So in fact, for the tourism, I feel the most important aspect from the government side is to give support in terms of promotion and publicity. As far as the infrastructure is concerned, heritage doesn't need much because heritage has to be portrayed as it is to have the value. Wildlife you have to protect as it is and then showcase it. Similarly the beach, the nature and all those things. So you don't need to invest much. Karnataka is fortunate to have good road, rail and air connectivity. So the maximum what we have to invest on is the promotion and publicity, and using the IT technology we can really do it well. And just now you told about this virtual tours. So virtual tours, ARs and the VRs, that will help us.
Uh, as you mentioned about Goa, like Kerala and Goa, we had like discussed. You have a Mangalore as a destination. You have a Mangalore as an airport and as a beach. But as a North Indian, like people think of a beach, they think of Goa. Do not think about Bangalore. So how do you change like that situation? You have that asset with you, but it's not well known, well marketed enough, perhaps.
So the advantage of not having too many people coming to the beach is also an advantage. Is a great thing. In fact, if you visit Goa and then travel down south to the coastline of Karnataka, which is more than 300 kilometers, probably you will feel that yes, you have come to paradise. As soon as you leave Goa and then come to Karwar, and you have the Devbag beach, which is a private beach owned by the government company, that is Jungle Lodges. If you go there, it's you have to travel in a boat, you reach that island, and then you have an exclusive private beach to yourself. So that is the kind of a thing which we have. Gokarna beach, which is near Murdeshwar. That is another very famous beach, and it has been last year. It was awarded as the best destination also by one of the companies. So we have the advantage of being very pristine locations, but then we also need to improve on the overall development of that area. So the coastal tourism, there is lot of opportunity to improve. Of late, since last 2 years or so, the coastal tourism in and around Udupi has been growing like anything. We already have number of houseboats. We have number of resorts coming up on the beach side, beach front. There was some kind of hindrances because of the CRZ regulations, but last year it was relaxed, keeping in mind the growth of the tourism to some extent, and that is now inviting more number of people who are interested to put up their resorts. So a lot of business is coming up. Now the temporary halt would be there because of the COVID, but then I'm pretty sure that that is going to improve. We also are going to capitalize on another strength there on the beach front. The cruise tourism is also there. So we have New Mangalore Port Trust, where every year almost 40 or 45 cruises come. The international cruise lines do land there, and close to almost 40,000 people, they come over there, but then we have not made sufficient arrangements for them to actually get down and then stay for a couple of days. So on that lines we are working, and probably we'll have a good package around the cruise liners, so that the local economy also gets a boost, and people who come there will be able to see the beautiful part of the coastal area, which has very nice temples. We have some nice monuments. Then the Western Ghats, the whole of Western Ghat is there, and some of the beaches which are really beautiful.
Uh, if you think about some of the states like UP, they are have highlighted a aspect called religious tourism. Uh, and what is a strategy from the religious tourism in Karnataka?
Religious tourism has been flourishing on its own. In fact, in our country, in the name of God, if you have a project or a package tour, it works very well. In fact, out of my all 21 different kinds of package tour, the package tour which takes people to Tirupati goes full throughout the year. So that way, all the religious places do not have dearth of visitors. Pilgrims are always there to visit them. So we do not have from the tourism department. We are not working on any special policy to boost the pilgrimage or such packages. But then this year, as part of the budget, Honorable Chief Minister has already announced we are going to tie up with the IRCTC, and then we will have some kind of religious tours for the senior citizens and other people. So that would be taken up by the government of Karnataka. KSTDC is supposed to tie up with IRCTC on this. So immediately after the things start becoming normal, we will take it ahead.
And are there any other aspects of Karnataka tourism which makes it like different and unique from other states, which you wish to highlight so that our audience is aware?
The uniqueness is its strength in heritage and the wildlife. Wildlife wise, probably Karnataka is the best. And among all the destinations, the Kabini resort or the Kabini area is supposed to be the best, where a lot of people go there, come back very satisfied with their experiences. The quality of resorts also around them, around these destinations, are really good. Jungle Lodges and Resorts is one of the best government corporation working in ecotourism very successfully with 28 different properties across the state, and all of them are very eco-friendly and always in demand. So because of the demand only the rates are slightly high, but then that is what people are always ready to pay. And a lot of photographers, lot of young people, they love to go out to jungle lodges not only for the jungle safari but also for the trekking in the wild and on the mountains. That is a unique strength of our state. Wildlife wise, we are very rich. And another important point is, unlike many other states, we are open 12 months. So season wise, there is no season. Other places has to tell that this is the best season. So we have a very moderate kind of a climate, and people can visit us at any point of time during the year. So that's another great strength which we have.
Fantastic. Uh, there are some like inputs by the audience that the booking of the online uh, systems in Karnataka government facilities is not very user friendly, and it is difficult to book online. All the aspects have some of the people have highlighted. So you want to comment on it?
If the comment is on KSTDC, I do not agree because we have a very friendly booking system, and it is at par with any of the best of the market trends. So we do have a dynamic rates as well as online systems not only available on our portal but also on all the OTAs.
Mm.
It is as good as any other hotel. If they have a problem with respect to any particular organization, if they can let me know, then we can definitely look at it. But then the private organizations are not directly controlled by us. We take care of our own organization.
And there is another point someone has raised that government has its own resort and own facilities, and it is competing with the private facilities. So how do you see this competition? Like, is it fair? Is it unfair? Because like there is a lot of pricing which is like dynamic, and which might be unfair pricing also. So does that hurt, or like your views about this thing?
First of all, we should not look at it as a competition because the number of facilities or the infrastructure which we have is much lesser than the required one. Second point is we have only two corporations in Karnataka which is of the tourism department. One is the Jungle Lodges and Resorts, which looks into ecotourism. The other is Karnataka State Tourism Development Corporation, which I look after. Now, Jungle Lodges and Resorts has been created only to ensure that there is some kind of a discipline in the forest areas. We do not want to disturb the ambience. Even though at Kabini we construct 200 rooms or 300 rooms, it will sell full. But then the policy decision is that we should not have more than 35. And they have limited to 34 rooms for so many years despite such a huge demand. They do 90-95% occupancy throughout the year. But then those numbers have been kept in control. The number of vehicles which goes inside the forest is also kept under check. So that way the discipline is there, and that is why the wildlife wise Karnataka is number one in the entire country. With regard to the KSTDC, it was started in 1971. That was the time when there was no tourism infrastructure. Government set up this corporation with an idea to basically create some kind of a halting facility, good hotels where people can go and stay, and then it gives a boost to the tourism. Over 50 years of time, we are in the 50th year. In 50 years, from one hotel, we have come to just 20 hotels now. So we have not grown. See, had we wanted to be in the market and then compete, we would have got 100 properties by this time.
Hmm.
But we have not done that. We also had number of times the discussion whether we should continue or not, because now today, if you look at the tourism sector, it is basically driven by the private sector only.
Hmm. Hmm.
So why should government be there? But we have kept only 20 properties just to be at pace with the rest of the community. Now today what is happening to rest of the community here, all the stakeholders in tourism, I am able to understand as part of the government that yes, the business is actually going like down like this is the impact. All those things helps us in taking policy decisions. So we have a first-hand experience of the market. It is not to create any kind of a competition. And we are always there. In fact, as Karnataka Tourism, we promote destinations, not KSTDC or JLR. So that way we work together, and that kind of a feeling should not be there. And the more we work together, the more will be the synergetic effect, and we can grow.
Now, what is the way out? Like someone has asked on the Q&A that from this COVID-19 situation, how are you looking at the exit plan, the exit strategy? Like when you foresee that we will start reviving the sector, and what is the roadmap in say the next 6 months to 1 year?
See, I basically foresee the entire revival in five different phases. The first phase is the current phase, which will continue even after 1 or 2 weeks after the lockdown is eased out for the tourism. In the first phase, there will not be any tourism. Currently, we do not have, even after the lockdown is exited, 1 or 2 weeks, we may not see any tourism. The second phase is the one where people start getting some kind of a confidence and they start traveling locally. So within the district, they may go to some tourist places, sit for a day and come back. They may also go to the restaurants and come back. The third phase is the one where interstate travel will start. So person from Bangalore goes to Coorg, person from Bangalore goes to Chikmagalur, somebody in Mysore goes to Hassan or to Hampi. So that kind of a thing, interstate travel will start, which I feel will start only around September or so, September, October, if the things start improving. And the second last, the fourth page is the domestic tourism, where we are talking of the entire country. We start traveling from one state to the other. That may happen after 6 months or 9 months. And the fifth phase is the international tourism, which I feel may start only at the end of 2021 or in 2022. We may have little bit of travel, but then that cannot be called as a substantial tourism. So this way, five pages would be there, and we need to wait and see, because it's very difficult to predict. You might be noticing that at the government level also, today the situation is something. Tomorrow suddenly it changes, and accordingly the guidelines, the SOPs has to be revised. It's a very dynamic kind of a situation. Nobody has gone through this kind of a situation earlier. So we also have to be open to all kinds of possibilities for future. But then if things go well, and as per the current predictions, people say that in the month of June, the number of infections will peak at a certain point of time, and after that you will see the flattening of the curve. And once that starts happening, then probably we can start opening up more and more of the businesses, and things will start coming back into place. So we should leave it to the government and also the overall situation how it happens. But then we have to be very positive. We have to be positive. In the tourism industry, whenever we start, we will bounce back very fast.
And what is your message to the overall travel fraternity, which is um, watching here this program on Facebook, the travel related entities, your partners, uh, tour operators, hotels, taxi, all that fraternity, which uh, plays an important role. That what's your message to them?
At the end, I would only like to tell that I understand their situation. It's a very, very difficult condition under which we all are working today. The survival of the companies or the organizations which we are looking after is a big question. Survival of all the employees who are working with us is another big question. And we need to basically tackle this. Yeah, and we need to also ensure that we do not retrench people. If we do that, those people, along with their families, would be in big distress. So even if we can pay some part of the amount which we can manage through loans or some other way, should be utilized to make them survive this problem, and then once the business improves, then we can pay them the entire salary. But then please take care of all your employees. That's a big message which I would like to give, because that's a major social issue. And also be very positive. So distresses do come in life. This is something which we will never forget in our life, because one of the biggest challenge which we are facing in our profession is what we are going through. But then this will only make us tougher. We will also be in a position to be wiser in our decisions. We will be much more efficient in our overall approach in handling the business when we restart. So from every experience we learn. So here also the economic measures which we have to take, the measures which we have to improve our businesses. So rather than having a comfortable thinking and comfortable growth of the business, now we would always be on the lookout for doing much better. So this is one opportunity which we have to take it positively, graciously, and overcome this. And we all need to work together. Once the businesses start, we need to basically have business ethics also. Let us not kill the market by some unhealthy competition. We all have to have the market ethics and wait for the right time. We will all do well. It's not going to take very long. Thank you.
So this we are close to the end of the session, and before we leave, Kumarji, you have attended some of our conferences, and we are interacting here right now online. You have seen our matching. So ILETS has been trying to become a bridge and between the government policies and the overall other fraternity of the industry. So your views on our efforts in this situation of the COVID-19, Kumarji. Like, you have any message for ILETS, inputs and suggestions on our work?
In fact, Dr. Gupta ji, I would like to tell that I have been associated with your organization since my BMTC days when I was director in BMTC, that is Bangalore Metropolitan Transport Company. From that time itself, I was associated in some or the other form, and I have attended a number of your workshops and seminars. You all have been doing great work, and with regard to the COVID also, you have taken it as a challenge, and then you are trying to basically educate people, also give confidence to the people that things are not as bad as what we are perceiving, and there is a hope for the future. We have to be very, very positive. You have been doing a great work in this, and I must congratulate you and the entire team for taking it up so professionally and so positively. Thank you very much.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कुमार पुष्कर जी. Thank you so much for your nice message, encouraging message. We at ALETS have been trying in these times of the COVID-19 to reach out to a lot of state and central government departments and industry and academia and hospitals and other stakeholders. And we have been trying to find out what is the situation and how are our leaders trying to tackle the situation, so that there is a much more confidence in the overall community about what's going on and what is the roadmap for the future. So with this, we will close the session here, and I thank our guest Kumar Pushkar ji for joining us and giving such a interesting perspective on overall Karnataka tourism sector, the plans for the future, and how are they looking at various segments of this sector to revive. And we will close here. And with this, I will say namaskar to everyone. Thank you and so much. Thank you.
Thank you very
Namaskar.
much, Dr. Gupta. Thank you so much.